Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. This will be a spin-off, but related to many videos in the past, but the video I posted yesterday in regards to ancient Egypt and distillation. So we're looking at the geometry of alchemy, how this will also link ancient Egyptian science, but the inherent connections between Hermeticism, the famed alchemists of a medieval early Renaissance period back through time, and how you really can't set these ancient sciences, especially via the quadrivium, were all connected. The geometry, astronomy, arithmetic, and music, and the weights and measures, Hermes, Trismegistus, Sheshet, Thoth, etc., gods of weights and measures, gods of science and knowledge, and how they are interrelated into alchemy, which is chemistry, which involves medicines, metallurgy, acids, all sorts of substances, etc., that all connect. You can really separate one from the other. So in the previous video I touched on the tomb of Khuwy, pardon the pronunciation, and there goes my record, pardon for that. So the tomb here, 25th century BC, see the Palermo stone and the royal annals, and so Khuwy, again, or pardon the pronunciation, during the reign of Nefer, and also the tomb of Nefer, again 25th century BC, 5th dynasty, shortly after. And so again, I'll link that previous video in the description, but we was looking at, I can skip through these. Oh, pardon, it's going a little bit skew-if. And so we have Old Kingdom, 5th dynasty connections, and I'll link that in the description because this will be related to it as well, the geometry of alchemy. And so we focus in on those, and what we seem to have images of a retort, which is an essential tool in distillation, one of the major processes in alchemy, still in chemistry today, very important. And see the similarities between these. What would distillation? Again, I tried to look and find. I couldn't see, but the importance, because especially tomb of Nefer, he was a supervisor of the artisans or craftsmen, which would have been involved in metalworking, colors, chemistry in general, and alchemy would have been an essential element. So whether they were making this faience, this ancient glassware, ceramics, but also the medicines, making a purified sulfur, but also how arsenic would relate to the arsenical copper or bronze, which the Egyptians were using as opposed to the modern pure copper used in reconstructions. But this importance of chemistry, and it would, especially looking at the analysis of these older ceramics, which would also be used in Mesopotamia, almost certainly the broad range of this knowledge almost seems to have been impossible without distillation, because even the recent attempts at remaking this ancient glass, they're using chemistry off the shelves, as where the Egyptians couldn't just go to a chemistry warehouse and buy the chemicals involved. These had to be sourced and refined, and it would almost be implausible that they did not have distillation. But the point is, for instance, Athanasius Kircher, very important hermeticist of alchemist in that period, classical imagery where you'll see music, geometry, but you also notice alchemical symbolism in there as well. Even the phoenix, for instance, is and these constellations have alchemical connections, the Ouroboros as well. But Kircher, also the Oedipus Egyptiacus, is very early work on the Egyptology. Even has Heliopolis and Memphis mentioned in here. Another one of his imagery, but this is the important part, the 3-4-5 triangle, and I'm going to do this as well, the 9-pointed star or the nonagon, and how this relates to the geometry of the pyramids too. But the 3-4-5 triangle, famous for Pythagorean Theorem, another one of his imagery here where we saw the, I'll link those videos in as well, the importance of the gods of metalwork and how they connect to this ancient chemistry as well. But notice the 3, 4, 5 triangle in here as well. So important to Pythagorean Theorem, the 3, 4, 5 triangle, the first of the perfect Pythagorean triplets. And that brings us back to these tombs, and the boating as well. And I want to I mentioned it as a small portion of an earlier video in regards to the ship's rigging and the implications for these things in regards to lifting. But this is another image which is higher resolution. But the tomb of Nefer is the one that I want to focus on, and this ship's rigging here. I'll link this source, Nefer's Tomb by Marcel Westerlund. And what he's showing in there is that this ship's rigging creates a right angle triangle, which Pythagorean theorem works only on right angle triangles, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And they're pointing at a ratio of 6, 5, and 4, 5, and therefore the long edge of a hypotenuse would be 6.403 ... but 4 and 5. Well, that would bring us to the most important famous pyramids, and the smallest of those is the Pyramid of Menkaure. So that's viewed from the south. This is viewed from the north. All pyramid entrances are from the north. Anyway, that's something else. So view from the north of Menkaure Pyramid. It's on its north and south side. It's 200 Egyptian royal cubits wide. On the east and west side, it's a little bit shorter than that, but the north and south view is 200 Egyptian royal cubits wide and 125 Egyptian royal cubits high. We can reduce that to 8 wide by 5 high. Fibonacci numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8. So we have a golden ratio sort of happening in there as well. But at 5 to 8, therefore the right angle triangle. So therefore at 5 high and 8 wide, the right angle triangle, which would create Menkaure's pyramid, would be 5 high by 4 wide. That's a 5 by 4 triangle. Now the reason it doesn't match is because of the perspective. So that the pinnacle is further back and this front edge is closer, but it is a 4 by 5 triangle. Just what we have is 4 by 5 triangle, 4 by 5 triangle. Now also in Nefer's tomb, we have this view, and again I'll post the link to the paper, but she is small but protected by Nefer's kilt. So that's she's there with on having a bit of fun with a lotus, but she's also and they've found that the kilt creates a 3, 4, 5 ratio. Pythagorean Theorem, so important in the esoteric schools, but Pythagoras, and as well as the connection to the Philosopher's Stone as well. But 3, 4, 5 triangle, so 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared, and that's another. So again, we can see this image here. That's one of the classical proofs of Pythagorean Theorem. We have a 3, 4, 5 triangle happening in that kilt. There's a lot of interesting connections in regards to the knots and the symbolism in these ancient Egyptian aprons and kilts. But now it brings us back to Giza. Now this is the Vesica Piscis, so fundamental building block of Euclidean geometry, sacred geometry. It is 3 wide by 2 high. Therefore, the right angle triangle enclosed by that rectangle is a 3, 4, 5 triangle, just as is seen in there. So now let's look at the Pyramid of Khafre, the one in the center. It's easily spotted because it has the casing stones still on the top. It is 411 Egyptian royal cubits wide, 274 Egyptian royal cubits high. We can reduce that to a ratio of 3 wide by 2 high. The Vesica, 3 wide by 2 high. Therefore, the cross section creates a 3, 4, 5 right angle triangle. And again, because of the perspective, this triangle is not going to match these photos, but based on the measurements, and again just include, so that's why it doesn't neatly follow in regards to photography. So the tomb of Nefer has pointing to the geometry of Menkare's pyramid and of Khafre's pyramid via the ship's rigging as well. Another very important feature. I want to separate that into a smaller video. I covered it on one in regards to Cygnus, but we'll be looking at ship's rigging and how important that is in regards to ancient lifting technology. If they could make ship's rigging, they could lift any stone. But Pyramid of Khafre, which is 3 wide by 2 high, therefore a 3, 4, 5 right angle triangle. I showed down in, I did a video, I'll link those as well, in Thebes and Abydos. This geometry is just all over, it is essential to their architecture, but if we focus on these lesser known, lesser thought about pyramids up in, especially around Saqqara area, just to the south of the famous 3 Giza pyramids. So the 3, 4, 5 triangle or 2 to 3 ratio of the Khafre pyramid. There we see that. So Pyramid of Pepi II, 150 Egyptian royal cubits wide, 100 Egyptian royal cubits high, therefore 3 wide by 2 high, therefore the right angle triangle 3, 4, 5. Merenenre has the same purport, 150 Egyptian royal cubits wide, 100 Egyptian royal cubits high. Now, how do you get the height from that? Well, you get the height from the base, but that also includes the pyramid text. But Pepi I, 100 Egyptian royal cubits high originally, and 150 Egyptian royal cubits wide. And because the footprint is there to be measured and cleared, and we also have casing stones, so therefore we know the angle. So even those other pyramids which look like a pile of rubble, we can get very, very accurate measurements, proportions of them, just with a few casing stones, and as long as we have the footprint. But also 100 Egyptian royal cubits, 150 Egyptian royal cubits base length is a very important standard. It also includes pyramid texts. Teti, again, 150 wide. As long as you have even fragments of the casing stones, you get the height of 100 Egyptian royal cubits, pyramid text. Yusakaf and Neferakare, which would be related to those tombs we saw earlier because they were serving under them. Ameni Kamau, that's so degraded it's hard, but anyway, we still have that ratio. So these important ratios as well, but found in Abydos, found across Thebes, and also the common use of 150 Egyptian royal cubits wide by 100 high, and that would relate to Sheshet stretching the chord. Sheshet's the counterpart of Thoth, god of science, geometry, mathematics, writing, weights and measures, in the stretching the chord ceremony, ever so important in aligning temples. And Pyramid of Khafre, 3 wide, 2 high. That this geometry, which links all these other sites, also links other pyramids. Now, for instance, the Red Pyramid, 420 Egyptian royal cubits wide. The Great Pyramid, 280 Egyptian royal cubits high, a 3 to 2 ratio. Therefore, Pythagorean Theorem coming in it again. So the Geometry of Alchemy, the pyramids, the later Hermeticists who were so obsessed with the ancient past, people such as Kircher, Flood, Mikkelspacher, Meyer, etc. And these sciences which have moved throughout time. So just like those Egyptian metalwork, Egyptian ceramics, the dyes, the colours involved in that would be no different from the grand cathedral such as Chartres with its very beautiful stained glass, which has these incredible light properties as well, which would again link back to these ancient passes. The Hermetic period, the alchemists, tendency now is to be very dismissive of them and look at them as some sort of voodoo or whatever, but same with ancient sciences of the past. But the geometry, which is the essential element in the beginning of the quadrivium, geometry, arithmetic, astronomy and music, and how the archaeoastronomy, the chemistry of the ancient world through to, because even the Renaissance, the medieval period, they were still in the ancient science. That they hadn't developed the combustion engine and other things. So the ancient history really only ended very recently. But SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, links in the description. Hope you enjoyed and have a good one.